You have explained it before, to yourself, to others, maybe even out loud. You have a very good reason for why it happened. The reason is so good you are already preparing it for next time. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining how do you explain the mistakes you keep making, and what actually changes them. Here is what I notice. You make the mistake, then you make the explanation, and somehow the explanation feels like the work. You tell yourself you were tired, you were under pressure, you were not at your best. Fine, now what? Does the explanation prevent the next one? Does it change anything in you that will face the same situation tomorrow? No. The explanation is a performance. You are performing accountability without paying its actual cost.
I would push back on that framing. The explanation is not simply a performance, it is a symptom. What interests me is not whether the person is being lazy about accountability, but what the explanation is protecting. There is always something underneath. When someone repeats the same mistake with the same quality of shock each time, it is not because they are undisciplined. It is because the real driver of that behavior has never surfaced. They explain the surface, the root continues untouched.
You are both starting from the assumption that something has gone wrong, but the mistake repeated is not always a failure of discipline or a hidden wound. Sometimes it is simply the natural outcome of being exactly who you are in this moment. The question worth asking is not why did this happen again, but what does this pattern actually show you about the shape of your life right now?
That sounds like a way to avoid the discomfort of changing. I am who I am in this moment can very easily become a reason to stay exactly as you are. I am not interested in what the pattern reveals if the revelation produces nothing. What does it produce? What do you do differently? That is the only measure.
But action without understanding is how the mistake keeps happening. This is the paradox you refuse to sit with, Epictetus. You tell people to act correctly, to discipline the will, to decide, and they do. And 6 months later, they are back in the same place, slightly more ashamed, slightly more bewildered. Because the force driving the behavior is not accessible to the will. It lives somewhere the decision cannot reach.
I think you are both describing something real, but neither of you is describing it plainly. Epictetus says change requires decision. Jung says change requires excavation. But look at what actually happens when someone genuinely changes. It is rarely because they decided harder. It is rarely because they found the wound. Usually something shifted in the conditions of their life. A loss, a relationship, a moment of stillness. And the old pattern simply lost its grip. Change that lasts is not usually forced. It arrives.
So we should wait for it? We should sit patiently until change decides to arrive? That is not wisdom. That is comfort dressed as philosophy. The person who waits for change is the person who dies waiting. You are responsible for the quality of your own life, not the universe. Not the conditions. You, what you are calling natural change, I call luck. And you cannot build a life on luck.
No one is suggesting we wait passively, but there is a difference between action that comes from genuine self-knowledge and action that is being used to avoid self-knowledge. Many people are extraordinarily busy changing, new habits, new rules, new systems, and none of it touches the actual problem because the actual problem is precisely what all this activity is helping them not look at. The busyness is the avoidance mechanism.
That is closer to it, but I would say it differently. The effort is the obstacle, not because effort is wrong, but because most effort at this kind of change is being applied in the wrong direction. You push against the symptom because the symptom is visible. What is underneath is not visible, so you never find it with force.
What is underneath then, according to you, Jung? Because you keep gesturing at this hidden thing without naming it. What is it that the will cannot touch?
It is different for each person, which is precisely why a single prescription fails. But I can name the structure. There is always a part of the self that was formed under conditions of pain or threat. Early conditions usually, that learn to operate in a particular way to survive those conditions. That part does not update easily. It does not respond to a decision made at 35 to finally be different. It responds to recognition, to being seen clearly without the story wrapped around it. When you can see that part of yourself without flinching, something becomes possible that was not possible before.
I notice that both of you still believe the person needs to do something to the mistake. Correct it, understand it, overcome it, but the mistake is not the enemy. It is information. It is pointing at something that has not yet been seen. The problem is not the pattern. The problem is the relationship to the pattern, which is almost always one of resistance or shame. Shame closes the eye, and the closed eye cannot see.
I do not disagree that shame is useless. Shame is not what I am asking for. I am asking for clear-eyed responsibility. You can see clearly and still be responsible. In fact, that is the only way to be genuinely responsible. You do not get to say, my shadow made me do it. You do not get to say the conditions were not favorable. You made the choice even if you made it poorly, even if you made it from a damaged or frightened place. Owning that completely, without explanation, without excuse, is where change actually starts.
Owning it is necessary, I agree. But owning it without understanding it is like holding a map with your location marked and no knowledge of the terrain. You know where you are. You still do not know how you got there or what keeps pulling you back. The ownership must be paired with curiosity, not judgment, curiosity.
Curiosity without urgency, that is the part you both leave out. You, Epictetus, bring urgency without curiosity. Jung, you bring curiosity without urgency. But change does not respond to either one alone. It responds to something quieter than both. It responds to honest attention, just looking steadily, without needing to fix what you see.
Honest attention is not enough. Honest attention that does not change your next action is a luxury. I can pay very honest attention to the fact that I keep losing my temper. If the next time someone provokes me, I lose it again, what has my honest attention bought me? Nothing. The action is the proof, not the insight, not the understanding, what you actually do.
And I would argue that what you do flows from what you can actually see. The person who keeps losing their temper is not failing to decide to stop. They are failing to see what the anger is covering. Take away the surface, and underneath is usually something older. Fear, perhaps, or grief, or a wound around powerlessness that has never been named. Until they see that, the decision to change is being made with one hand while the other hand clings to the original pattern.
You are both right about your own pieces, but you keep trying to build a complete answer out of half the picture. Epictetus, you are right that attention without action is useless. Jung, you are right that action without understanding keeps missing its target. But the listener sitting with a repeated mistake is probably not asking for a debate about philosophy. They are asking a simpler thing. What do I do with the fact that I keep doing this?
Then answer it plainly.
The answer is plainly that they need to stop treating the explanation as the solution. The explanation, whether it is I was tired, or it is my shadow, or the conditions were not right, has become a ritual, a way of processing the mistake that leaves them exactly where they started. The ritual of explanation is comfortable. It creates the feeling of having done something. The actual work is different. It is less comfortable. It requires staying in contact with the mistake without immediately reaching for the frame around it.
I would add that the explanation is often structured specifically to protect something. You will notice, if you pay close attention, that the explanation always lands on something external, something prior, something that was done to you, or something about the circumstances. Rarely does it land squarely on the part of you that chose, from your own habitual interior, to do the thing again. The explanation is not dishonest. It often contains truth, but it is curated. It is selected, and what is left out is always the most important part.
And what is left out is always what you have the most control over. That is not a coincidence. You curate the explanation to exclude your own agency, because if you include it fully, you have to do something about it. The explanation protects the inaction every time.
The water does not ask itself why it keeps flowing downhill. It flows where the ground allows. The person who keeps making the same mistake is not broken, but the channel is cut in a particular direction and the water keeps following it. The question is not, how do I stop the water? The question is whether you can feel where the channel runs and begin, very slowly, without forcing, to reshape it.
That is the most useful thing you have said, but I want to push on one word, slowly. I understand the instinct. But sometimes slowness is another form of avoidance. Sometimes the channel can be redirected in a single moment of honest reckoning if the person is willing to bear the full weight of what they see.
Sometimes, but reckoning without integration is just another form of crisis. I've seen many people have that single moment of honest clarity. They see the pattern completely and suddenly, and then, because they have no relationship to what they have seen, no steady, curious engagement with it over time, the insight collapses and the pattern reasserts itself, often with greater force. The single moment of clarity is not the change. It is the beginning of the possibility of change.
You are describing the same thing from opposite ends. Epictetus is describing the moment the channel shifts. Jung is describing why the shift has to be worked with, not just struck. Neither of you is wrong, but neither of you is describing what makes the difference. What makes the difference is honesty without defense. Not once, not in a single moment, but as a practice. Looking at yourself without immediately explaining yourself, that is both simple and nearly impossible. And that is exactly why it changes things when it happens.
All of this argument, and we have not yet said the one true thing. Set down the frameworks for a moment. Something simpler is waiting.
The reason you keep making the same mistake is not that you lack the will to stop. It is that the part of you driving the mistake is not visible to the part of you that wants to change. These are not the same part. The part that decides is sitting at the surface. The part that acts is sitting somewhere deeper, and it formed its habits long before you started thinking clearly about who you want to be. This is not an excuse, it is a map. The explanation you reach for after the mistake is almost always protecting something. It selects certain facts and leaves others out. The selected facts are real. Yes, you were tired. Yes, the situation was difficult. But they are not the whole truth. The whole truth includes the part you chose from your own interior to do the thing again. That part is what needs your attention, not your judgment, your attention. Judgment closes the eye, curiosity opens it. Here is what to look for. The explanation that feels most satisfying, most complete, most airtight. That one is almost certainly the one doing the most work to protect you from seeing clearly. The explanation that makes you slightly uncomfortable, that you hesitate before saying even to yourself, that one is pointing somewhere true. Today, try this. Think of one mistake you keep making. Write down the explanation you always give. Then write down the part of the explanation you always leave out. Just those two things. Do not try to fix anything. Just look at what you have been avoiding naming. That is where the change begins. Not in a decision, but in a clear-eyed look at what you have been unwilling to see.
The explanation is not the work. You have always known this, and you have kept explaining anyway. That is the mistake beneath the mistake. You do not need a better framework. You need to stop looking away from the part you already know is there. The debate you just heard does not change anything. What you do in the next 24 hours, whether you look clearly or reach again for the comfortable story, that is the only thing that counts. Carry that out the door. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.